What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Booms could be heard for miles as the two warriors' fists collided with one another. The ground would shake each time their fists collided with one another. The two fighters were fighting high above the current spectators. The first fighter was a tall and muscular man, but not like a bodybuilder but more as a man who trained avidly. He wore an orange gi that was tucked into black and blue, shin-high boots. He had an insignia on the gi where his heart was. What was his most prominent feature was his blue hair. What was normally wild and untamed black hair, is now blue and spiked straight up. The man he was fighting was essentially identical to him. He has a slightly darker skin tone and fully outlined eyes, along with a somewhat skinnier physique. His attire consists of a sleeveless dark gray awagi, a long-sleeved black undershirt with a turtleneck, a red sash, black pants and white boots. He wears a single gold and green patara earring on his left ear. And like the other man, he would normally have black hair but currently it was pink and mirrored the blue-haired individual's spikiness. These two fighters were Goku and Goku Black, or Black for short. "Goku will not win," muttered one of the spectators. He had pale green skin, gray irises, white eyebrows, and white hair in the style of a mohawk. He wore a violet long-sleeved shirt under a gray and yellow coat, a light blue sash, darker blue baggy pants, and white boots. He also wore an earring which was similar to the one Black was wearing that was also on his left ear. This man was Zamasu and the whole reason this world was onslaught to the current destruction. Goku might not win, but you won't be able to see it. Zamasu turned around to see who was speaking to him. "Ah, the young Saiyan, Trunks, was it?" Zamasu said condescendingly. "What are you going to do with that jug there, boy? Are you going to offer me a drink before I end your miserable mortal life?" Zamasu laughed as he made fun of the young Saiyan. Trunks smirked at the self-proclaimed god. He could just imagine his face once he realized what he was going to do. "This is going to be your new home for all of eternity. So, I hope we made comfy enough for you," Trunks stated. Before Zamasu had a chance to question him, Trunks stuck his hand out towards him and shouted, "Mafuba." Time seemed to stop for everyone, even Goku and Black stopped their fight as they felt the strange power. And then it seemed to restart as Zamasu felt an intense pain throughout his body as a green vortex enveloped his body. "Ah, what is this?" Zamasu yelled as he was caught in the vortex. "This is the power of mortals. You've underestimated us and now you will be sealed for all of eternity." Trunks yelled as he started to pull Zamasu into the jug that would be his prison for the rest of time. "Arg, I have to stop this boy," Black said as he tried to fly and stop Trunks. He was stopped as Goku teleported in front of him. "Oh no you don't, your fight is with me," Goku said as he punched him into a nearby building. "You are nothing but vermins," Black yelled. "I'll kill you all." Goku flew up to where Black dislodged himself from the building. "I won't let you harm anyone else. Your reign of evil ends here," Goku yelled at him as his started to power up. "Ah," Goku yelled as he powered up more than he ever has before. He's increasing his power to unbelievable proportions, Black thought as he started to power up himself. Goku shifted his body to the side and cupped his hands together. "Ka," Goku started. "This is for all the people you have killed." "Me?" Goku said as he started to charge his signature technique. "This is bad," thought Black. "That has the potential to kill me with the sudden power boost he obtained." Black shifted his body to mirror Goku's and started to charge his own variation of Goku's signature move. "This is for betraying your own master." "Ha, this is for you destroying innocent planets." "Me?" Goku's palms were bright with the color blue and holding in an amazing amount of condensed energy that waited to be released. Black, who stood across from Goku, had his own ball of energy that was pink and had a tinge of black in the middle of the charging energy. "And this is for my family that you killed here." "Ha, ha." Both Goku and Black yelled as they released their attacks at one another. Pink met blue as the two Kamehameha attacks met each other in the air. The power that was behind them were only equal to each other. The power behind the two blasts could be felt across the planet and even the universe. Both Black and Goku grunted as they tried to overpower one another. The amount of power the two blasts were making in their push was becoming too much for the universe, however. Both combatants felt their attacks weaken until they vanished into nothingness. Before they could question it, a small black ball appeared where the two blasts collided. Then the ball expanded to the size of a basketball until it stopped growing once it reached the size of one of capsule core. Spaceships. The black mass of energy started to pull things into it like a vacuum. The force started to pull the two fighters in. "What have you done, you imbecile? You've created a black hole." Black yelled at Goku. "What? You're just as responsible as I am." Goku yelled as he freaked out. He didn't want to be sucked into the black hole. He still had to be with his family. And Chi-Chi. She'd kill him if he was sucked into a black hole. Then, in a very rare moment of intelligence that only Goku can have, he thought of a way to save himself and stop the black hole. Black turned to yell at Goku some more only to find he wasn't there. "Where did that Moro?" Black stopped what he was saying as he felt a presence behind him. Black turned around only to see Goku there with a ki blast in his hand. "Bye," Goku said a bit too enthusiastically for what had just transpired. He slammed the blast into Black, sending him directly into the black hole. Once he entered it, the ki blast exploded. The explosion destabilized the black hole and it collapsed on itself, trapping Black Goku inside. "I better check with the others," Goku said as he flew to where he saw Trunks standing with a closed jar and Zamasu missing. "Did you get him, Trunks?" Goku asked. "Yeah, what about Black? Did you get him?" Goku frowned. "I sent him into the black hole that we made." Trunks' mouth fell open at the way Goku seemed to dismiss the fact he made something so powerful. "I ended up destabilizing it with a ki blast and it collapsed on itself, but I don't know if he is still alive or not," Goku told the young Saiyan. "How did you know you could destabilize it?" Trunks asked in astonishment. Goku chuckled and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. "I didn't." Trunks' face vaulted. "I just kinda took a shot in the dark that it would work." Trunks went to speak but was cut off by a voice. "Good job, Goku. Seems that I didn't need to step in after all." Both Goku and Trunks turned around to see Beerus and Whis. "Hey Beerus, how long have you been here?" Goku casually addressed the god of destruction. "Long enough for you and that copycat to create a rip in the fabric of space and time," Beerus informed the two. "So Black is still alive then?" Trunks asked, frightened that someone as powerful as that might come back. "Actually," Whis interrupted, "he is gone. He is longer a part of this universe or timeline. His presence has all but vanished." Trunks let out a sigh of relief while Goku smiled. "Sounds great, but let's go home. I'm starving." Goku explained, much to the agreement of Beerus and Whis. "Aren't you forgetting something?" The group looked to side to see Vegeta standing there with a scowl on his face. "Oh, Vegeta, when did you get here?" Goku asked. It took everything Vegeta had to prevent himself from attacking Goku. "I've been here the entire time. You just decided to take the spotlight like always," Vegeta yelled. "You can fight the next guy we face first then." "No worries." Goku laughed as he tried to calm him down. Trunks chuckled, as did Whis. Beerus just smirked at the Saiyans. He caught on to what Whis was saying. Black disappeared from this universe. Didn't mean he couldn't be in another one. Hopefully he landed in Champas. Deep inside Universe 6. Pain. That is all Black felt as he floated through space and time. With all his senses dulled, he had no idea what was going on. How long has he been drifting? A few seconds, minutes, days? Maybe even years? He didn't know where he was. Then he saw it. The light that opened up in front of him. He didn't care where or what it led to. He just wanted to end this endless drifting. As he neared it, he had to close his eyes due to a blinding light. He disappeared from the void. Orange. A pleasant change from the black nothingness that he was expecting to see. He moved to get on his hands and knees as he was disoriented. That's when he felt that whatever orange thing he was on was soft and furry. Before he could contemplate further, chains wrapped around the orange mass, and by default him, and pulled it to the ground with Black stuck to the orange mass. Black struggled to break the chains, but he was still weak from traveling through the black hole and couldn't even muster enough energy to make a ki blast. He stopped struggling as he heard voices talking. He turned and was able to make out a couple of people. There was a man with spiky yellow hair. He had a white coat with red flames licking the bottom of it. Next to him was a woman that had red hair that went down to her waist. She wore a long green, loose-fitting dress. She had the chains that were holding him and the orange mass down protruding from her back. They both had a giant claw protruding from their stomachs. That's when he saw the two children, obviously newborns given they were still nude and way too small to be anything but newborns. Identical twins, with whiskers? That is when he noticed where the claw was coming from. What he saw was a giant fox. A nine-tailed fox. He was tied down to a nine-tailed fox. Before he could contemplate any further, he felt something pulling on him and the giant fox. He saw a ghostly-like creature pulling on him and the creature. The apparition split the beast into 3 parts. He separated the energy the fox had in 2 pieces and the consciousness of the beast. He then locked eyes with the apparition. It smirked, saying, "This has become very interesting." The apparition spoke before grabbing him. It sealed the one piece of the energy into the blonde man and the other half into one of the twins. The apparition then grabbed the consciousness of the beast in him and proceeded to seal him into the other twin. Black succumbed to unconsciousness. Outside world, Hiruzen was on his knees crying as held one of the twins. He had just lost 2 powerful ninja and ones he saw as his own family. Minato and Kushina were always happy and spreading joy wherever they went in the village. Kushina never ceased to remind him of his age while Minato just chuckled and looked to him for guidance as he was his grandfather. And now they were gone. They had passed in sealing the 9 tails into their twins, Naruto and Menma. He held Naruto while Menma was being held by his student, Jiraiya. Tsunade just behind him. "What do we do now?" questioned Tsunade. She was heartbroken at the thought of losing her surrogate sister, Kushina. Kushina had lived in the Senju compound when she had came to the village given the Senju and Uzumaki were distant cousins. "What do you mean, what do we do now?" "We train little Menma of course." Jiraiya shouted loudly. "And what of Naruto?" Hiruzen said a bit distastefully at the white-haired man. "What of him?" "You heard Minato's words. Menma has the yin chakra of the 9 tails inside of him while Naruto just has the consciousness." Jiraiya said. "Menma needs all the training he needs to harness the power bestowed upon him." Hiruzen frowned at his student's words. He would forget his own apprentice's son for another just because of a little power. "I'm gonna take him with me on my travels." Hiruzen gasped at Jiraiya's words. "Don't worry about it. I am a seal master, so if anything were to happen with the seal, I would be the most qualified to deal with. And Naruto will do fine growing as a Nor what the hell." Jiraiya shouted mid-thought as he pointed at Naruto. The group all turned to look at Naruto who was wrapped up in Hiruzen's arms. Naruto's once golden hair was now turning to a solid black, his blonde eyebrows now matching his hair, and his skin now taking a darker tone than the one before. Black's hair and skin tone. What just happened?" a stunned Tsunade asked. "I don't know," Hiruzen muttered. Jiraiya moved towards Naruto and moved the blanket he was wrapped in. He looked at the seal on his stomach to see it was slowly changing to something he has never seen before. The seal may be the cause of it. Hiruzen looked at Naruto's stomach and noticed the changes. This is the first time that we have heard of a tailed beast being sealed by the Shinigami. Maybe it is the Shinigami's influence that made the boy's features and seal to change. Jiraiya said in thought. "That may be true, but I still refuse you to leave," Hiruzen stated. Jiraiya looked at Hiruzen as if he was crazy. "But he needs to be trained in order to control the power of the 9 tails. Kumo already has a Jinchuriki who can fully control their tailed beast. Plus, if he remains here, people would feel the power of the 9 tails when he is training and make the connections." Jiraiya reasoned. "You've heard the stories of other villages' Jinchuriki. Do you want that for these boys?" Before Hiruzen could speak, Tsunade stepped forward. "No matter how much I hate the pervert, he does have a point." Hiruzen's jaw hit the ground. He never thought he would see the day Tsunade would agree with Jiraiya. Plus, he's gonna need my help. Can't have him train a Jinchuriki and end up dying to the tailed beast's power. Only a medic of my caliber could heal that type of injury. Plus, I have to keep an eye on my godson after all. Can't have his godfather making him into a pervert." Hiruzen looked down as a shadow covered his eyes. He was shaking with rage. "What about Naruto? He's your godchild after all. Minato and Kushina trusted you two to look after their kids when they weren't able to." "Sensei, it's just that Hiruzen snapped at Tsunade. "No, I'm no longer your teacher. I know I didn't teach ungrateful kids like you two." Hiruzen looked up with a fire in his eyes. "Leave if you want, but know this. You won't be labeled as missing nin, but you won't have any backing of Konoha either. If you cause trouble in another village, you will be held responsible. Any money that you need, you have to get on your own. I will not send any missions to the both of you. Do you understand? Hiruzen yelled. Both Sannin nodded at him. And you better return by the time Naruto graduates from the academy. You can't keep him away from his own blood. A nod. And whatever money you take with you, that will be all you get. If you guys so much as come back before Naruto leaves the academy for any reason, you will stay. Any attempt to leave will result in you two becoming missing nin with a reward so great whether you are brought back alive or dead. They nodded fearfully at him. They haven't seen him this angry in years. Now leave and gather your things. Just the sight of you sickens me. Hiruzen said as he stood up. We'll be leaving at noon tomorrow. Jiraiya informed him, hoping he would see them off. Unfortunately for them, Hiruzen thought of them as trash for abandoning his predecessor's son. None of them noticing an Anbu, with the kanji for root on their mask, listening to their entire conversation. Inside the seal, before Hiruzen came, Black Goku groaned as he sat up. He noticed he was in shallow water. He looked around and noticed he was in some sewer. He stood up and stretched. He then saw giant bars just a few feet away from him. He walked towards them and saw they closed together to where he couldn't get through if he wanted to. Well, what's a human like you doing in here? Black turned around and was met with the giant fox he saw earlier. The only difference being is that he couldn't sense an ounce of power compared to the near limitless power he felt earlier. And who are you calling a filthy human, you overgrown plush toy? Black shot back. Kurama growled at him. I am a god. I have brought fear into other gods with just my presence. He boasted. Another human claiming to be a god. I already dealt with Madara's god complex and I certainly don't need to deal with yours. Kurama shouted. Claim? No, I am one. Black shouted before he powered up. Ah! Kurama was utterly shocked at the power Black was showing as he saw Black's hair turn from black to pink. He hadn't felt power like this since his father. And Kurama was ashamed to say it. But Black would have decimated his father should they fight with this power. However, just as quickly as he changed, it disappeared as Black fell to his hands and knees. What was that? Black gasped. That was the seal. Kurama pointed at the large paper on the cage. This seal is made to take whatever power it has sealed behind it and give it to the holder of the seal. You may not have felt it, but it was taking your power since you were sealed. But you using whatever power you just used was instantly taken as the seal thought you were trying to force yourself out. Humans. They have some peculiar techniques. Black muttered as he remembered Trunks sealing Zamasu. Tell me about it. This one is an interesting one though. It is meant to take all of the sealed object's power to nothingness. Meaning you will eventually die from it. Black's eyes widened. What? I can't die. And what about you? You have no power whatsoever, so how are you still here? Black shouted. Kurama laughed at the self-proclaimed god. That may be true, but since I don't have any chakra, it never detected me as an entity to be sealed. It can't steal my energy because it doesn't know I'm here. Kurama taunted the man. Black just glared at the fox. And how do I get out of here? There has to be a way for me to get out before I die. Black yelled. Kurama looked thoughtful for a second before speaking. There is a way, but you won't live long enough to see it. Black gave him a look to continue. You see, we are in what is called a Jinchuriki, or power of human sacrifice. The only way for a tailed beast, such as myself or something else that would be sealed like you, to get free would for their Jinchuriki to die or release us on their own. Kurama paused for a moment. Your best bet is to wait for your Jinchuriki to die, as they will be loyal to their village and not release us in fear of the home being destroyed. Before they could continue, they heard talking and were able to see what Naruto saw. They witnessed the entire scene with Hiruzen and his two students. Seems that seal absorbed more than just your energy. It seems to have absorbed your DNA also. Kurama smirked. You may be lucky. Black looked at Kurama in puzzlement. You may never be free, but how does having an apprentice sound? This boy is meant to live lonely and hated by the village. And I don't know if you ever wanted this. Naruto is now technically you in a sense. Plus, those monkeys didn't see that Anbu hiding in the bushes. That ninja belongs to a shady organization known as Root. It is led by a power-hungry fool who cares only for himself. I'm willingly to bet that he will spread word of Naruto being a Jinchuriki, leading to his abuse and neglect. That will make him resent the village and humans such as you do. Black had an evil smile. And with that, I can create my own god here and can watch peacefully as Naruto destroys all these pathetic mortals. After all, it is a father's duty to make sure his son can protect himself. Black said. Now, what can you tell me of this world? Black asked. Kurama grinned. He was going to enjoy being sealed with this man. 7 years later. Taiko, shouldn't we be heading out to watch the boy already? It's getting late and the village has started their celebration, said an Anbu wearing a mask that resembled a cat. Calm down, Neko. The festival only started so things are still calm, stated their captain who wore a mask resembling a cat. Just relax a bit and enjoy yourselves. Neko along with the other Anbu in their squad look a bit reluctant at that. But orders were orders, and if they left, that could be seen as insubordination grounds for being stripped of Anbu and even their ninja license. Begrudgingly, Neko sat down in Anbu HQ along with her teammates following her. She looked out the window and hoped for the best. Seal. Naruto woke up with a groan. His head hurt. The last things he remembered was walking home as everyone set up for the festival. Then he remembered when he turned the corner to go to his apartment, he was met with a mob of people waiting for him. From civilians to ninja. And then pain. Unbearable pain. They had attacked him and probably dumped him somewhere to rot. That is when he noticed the sewer-like place he was in. Great, they dumped me in the sewers below the village. Damn villagers. Naruto spat as he stood up. You're not in a sewer, kid. Naruto turned around at the sound of another voice. What he was met with were giant metal bars that seemed higher than the Hokage monument. Then he saw what lied behind the bars. A giant nine-tailed fox with a man with black hair sitting on the fox's head. Welcome to your mind, Kurama said in a booming voice. Who are you? Naruto asked. He figured who the fox was, but the man was a mysterious. Black jumped down to where he was in front of the bars separating Naruto and his tenants. Well, I have many names, but people call me Black Goku, or just Black for short. And this guy, Black motioned behind him, is the nine-tailed fox, or Kurama. Naruto looked at him wearily for a moment. Could he believe him? Did he really have a man sealed inside him along with the nine tails? I know it might be hard to believe, but it is true. We have been sealed in you since your birth, Black said. Naruto's eyes widened. My birth? So do you guys know who my parents are? Can you tell me about them? Naruto pleaded. Kurama looked at Black and smirked. How about we show you instead? Kurama said behind the mindscape shifted to show the day Naruto was born. Naruto was tears when he saw his parents. His father was the fourth Hokage. And his mother was beautiful. He was so happy to finally know who they were. However, that soon died as he found out his godparents abandoned him for his twin brother. How do you feel about all this, Naruto? Black said. Naruto looked down as his hair shadowed his eyes. How do I feel? I feel angry. No, I feel furious. How can they be in this hellhole for my brother? If they ever come near me, or any of these bigoted villagers, and try to act like nothing happened. He looked up and Black grinned at Naruto as he saw his eyes changing from his blue to a seafoam green. I'll kill them all if they think I'll ever forgive them. Naruto yelled as electricity sparked around him. Then, energy exploded around him as a yellow aura surrounded him. His hair changed from black to yellow. If possible, his spiky hair got spikier. Naruto felt weird. No, he felt stronger. As if he could fight all the Junin in the village and still win. Congratulations, Naruto. Naruto looked at Black. You have reached what is known as a Super Saiyan. And what is a Super Saiyan? Naruto asked in a bit deeper voice. Well, you are a Saiyan, a proud warrior race. But you weren't born one. Black said. But before that, let me tell you my story. Black then proceeded to tell Naruto how he came to be and how he ended up here. The entire truth. Forest of Death. Anko was pissed. It had been a month now since that bastard Orochimaru left her on that island after giving her the curse mark. She was only 10, damn it. She wasn't even a ninja and the bastard betrayed her trust. She was heading home from training when she saw it. To her left she saw a bright golden glow in the distance of the Forest of Death. She decided to make her way over to the glow only to find a boy glowing with a shroud of yellow around him. He's injured, Anko thought as she inspected his body. Cuts and bruises littered his body. Summoning jutsu, Anko yelled as she slammed her hand on the ground. A small black snake appeared in a puff of snake. Anko quickly put a rolled-up scroll in its mouth. Quick, take that note to Yuga One. The snake nodded before it slithered off towards the village. Anko cut Naruto's shirt and started to clean and bandage his wounds. Not long after, Naruto's golden shroud died down and his hair reverted back to his usual black. Wait, Anko thought. This is that boy, the one that all the villagers talk about. Before Anko could think further, a squad of Anbu appeared. Anko, what happened? Questioned the cat-masked Anbu. I don't know. I was training when I saw him lying here. Anko said. They didn't question any further as the cat-masked Anbu picked up the boy. It's fine, Anko. Go home, we'll handle this. The squad of Anbu disappeared in a flicker of leaves. Anko just stood up and dusted off her pants. She then started her journey home. Thoughts of a golden glowing boy occupying her thoughts. Hospital. Hiruzen was pissed. Naruto was never meant to be harmed. He was attacked by a drunk villager a few years ago but was saved before the idiot could do more than just give Naruto a black eye. And now, apparently a mob of villagers, and some ninja, were waiting to ambush the young boy. He was interrupted when an Anbu with a dog mask entered. Inu, grab your team and wait for me in my office. I will not accept tardiness. Inu nodded before he left. Hiruzen then noticed that Naruto started to wake up. How are you feeling, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen asked as Naruto opened his eyes. Naruto just looked at the third Hokage. I feel better, Naruto said. Gigi, can you tell me about my parents? He suddenly asked. Hiruzen was about to say he didn't know but decided against it. He put this off long enough. He needed to tell this boy everything concerning him. I will. Come by my office tomorrow and I'll tell you everything you want to know. Naruto looked surprised but nodded still. Now, I have some business to attend to, so I must be leaving. Naruto looked saddened by this, which Hiruzen noticed. Now, there is someone who wants to see you. Claims since they did find you, I feel it is fair that they get to see you. Naruto looked shocked. Someone wanted to see him? Who? As Hiruzen left, he noticed a girl not that much older than him enter the room. She had brown, pupilless eyes. She had violet-colored hair. She was certainly beautiful for her age. Anko closed the door and sat next to Naruto. There was an awkward silence for a few minutes. Hi, they both said at the same time. They looked at each other before breaking out in laughter. Things were looking up. Hokage's office. Care to explain to me what happened, Kakashi? Hiruzen said with anger. Inu, or the now revealed Kakashi, stepped forward. The Anbu knew their Hokage was pissed if he was using their actual names when they were still in Anbu gear. Well, we were late in getting to Naruto and had no idea where he was. Kakashi tried to save face. Is this true, Yugo? Hiruzen didn't trust the man before him. Every single person that the Hokage put faith in seemed to stab his back. First Tsunade and Jiraiya, then Orochimaru, and now Kakashi. It is somewhat true, Hokage-sama. Kakashi glared at Yugo. Kakashi had stated that we had nothing to worry about and Naruto would be safe. So he ordered us to wait in HQ to relax for a bit. It was only when Anko's summons found me that we left to find Naruto. Hiruzen looked like he wanted to kill someone. Is this true? He asked the rest of the team. They all nodded at what Yugo said. I see. Well, he looked at Kakashi. You disobeyed orders from your Hokage, Hitaki. Grounds are for you to be removed from being an active shinobi. Kakashi's eyes widened at that. But you are one of our strongest ninja. So, I hereby strip you of your Anbu status. You are now a Junin with no chance of ever becoming a part of Anbu ever again. Furthermore, you will listen to any order given to me and be on time to everything pertaining to ninja matters. Failure to do so and I will put you on a fresh team of genin so you can learn how to be a proper ninja. Do you understand? Hiruzen yelled. High. Kakashi said a bit shakily. Good. Now, you go. She stepped forward. You are now Anbu captain. You were always next in line should Kakashi retire, but due to these circumstances, your promotion has been moved up. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Yugo bowed. Now, as first duty as Anbu captain, I want you to find everyone involved with Naruto's beating. And prep them for public execution. I don't care if they are ninjas or council members, they will be tried for their crimes. The Will of Fire was back. Along with the god of shinobi. Hi, Yugo said before she and her new team vanished. Kakashi, get out of my office. Hiruzen finally sat down in his chair with a sigh. 6 years later, Naruto stirred as he woke up. He yawned as he laid in bed pondering everything that happened. First, was that when Black told him everything, he agreed to be his apprentice before the seal killed him. While he won't kill everyone, he will destroy those who try and belittle or bully him. Which he did. Then when he went to the Hokage, he was surprised that he told the same story that Black and Kurama told him of his parents and godparents. That was a shock. He knew the third lied when he said he didn't know his parents, but to find out that the third hated himself for letting his students take his sibling while leaving him here kinda touched Naruto. It showed that people cared for him even when he didn't know it. Stirring next to him brought him out of his thoughts. He looked down to see violet hair on his chest as the person showed signs of awakening. That was another thing. Anko. After the trip to the hospital, they instantly became friends. They were both hated for something that they didn't have control over. And after the third suggesting that they move in together to keep each other company, things flourished from there. Morning Naru-kun, Anko said as she sat up a bit. Morning Anko-chan. Anko leaned in and gave Naruto a peck on the lips. The sheet falling off her body to reveal her womanly figure. Only 16 and had a figure that woman would die for. With a slim, muscular build for a woman and D-cup S. Anko then straddled Naruto as she rubbed their crotches together. Anko-heim, don't. Naruto moaned. Sounds like pant you don't want me to though. Anko said, speeding up her movements. You don't know how much I want to take you, Anko, but I have to go to the academy. I'm graduating today, Naruto said. When I pass and after they show up, I'll give you all my undivided attention. That was another thing. Naruto told Anko everything from his birth to meeting Black and Kurama. To his surprise, Anko accepted it, just saying it was a part of him and that made her love him even more. Oh, my Naru-kun is going to become ninja now. Anko said as she still straddled him. You're gonna fight ninja and save people. Her eyes got a dark perverted glint. And then you're gonna have your way with those helpless kunoichi. Naruto didn't know why, but Anko really wanted him to have other women. When asked why, she just responded that it made her hot thinking about it and always wanted to be with other women as her man brought them to nirvana. Anko-heim, stop, Naruto struggled to say. Fine, but you owe me, Anko said as she got off of him. Yeah. With that, both teens got dressed and left their apartment for the day. Neither of them realizing their peaceful days coming to an end. Naruto crossed his arms as he made his way to the academy. As he walked, he ignored all the glares and whispers the villagers aimed at him. Apparently, some old warhawk had spread the word that he was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Hiruzen had told him he suspected it was Danzo but wasn't 100% sure it was him. But Naruto knew better. Black and Kurama had told him of the Anbu watching the entire interaction with the old man and his supposed godparents. That was another issue. His godparents and his brother Menma. They were coming today. At least, that is what the Hokage had told him. That he said they had to return by his graduation or risk becoming the most wanted missing nin to ever be entered in the bingo book. Naruto was actually surprised at the amount the Hokage was willing to pay to have them dragged back here. You could start a new village with money like that. Naruto was interrupted from his thoughts as he caught a rock aimed at the back of his head. He turned and saw the villager who threw it. He was a small, pudgy man. He was one of the market owners that always tried to sell him rotten food at ridiculously overpriced food. Get out of here, you demon. Just because you dress different doesn't mean we won't recognize your true form. Naruto looked down to his attire. Naruto stood at a tall height for his age, at a height of 5 feet 6 inches. His attire consists of a sleeveless dark gray awagi, a long-sleeved black undershirt with a turtleneck, a red sash, black pants and white boots. He also had a gold and green earring on his left ear. The earring was a gift from Black. Naruto smirked at the man before he disappeared from everyone's sight, earning a gasp of surprise. He reappeared in front of the pudgy man. The man would have gasped if it wasn't for Naruto wrapping his hand around the man's neck and lifting him off the ground and bringing him to eye level. You know the Hokage's law is still in effect, right? Naruto said as he squeezed the man's neck tighter. You, fu, d, mon. The man rasped out. Naruto got a sadistic gleam as he lifted his other hand and put his index finger on the man's shoulder. What did you say? Naruto asked rhetorically. He let up his grip on the man's neck to let him speak more clearly. You fucking demon. Naruto grinned, showing all his teeth. Ah, the man cried out as Naruto shot a finger blast through the man's shoulder. It left a small hole, but you could see through it as blood started flowing out of it. Naruto was about to blast him again until a voice interrupted him. Naruto, stop, release that man now. Naruto sighed as he looked at a cat-masked Anbu. Naruto dropped the man on his ass as he put his hands behind his head. You're in for it now, boy, the pudgy man said as he held his bleeding shoulder. Naruto rolled his eyes as he spoke to the cat-masked Anbu. What now, Ka-chan? Naruto said sarcastically. Naruto always called her this when he was annoyed with Yugo. She wasn't that much older than Anko, being 18, and was like his and Anko's older sister. Though, she did have the moments where she treated them as her own children rather than siblings. He started to call her this because of her doting, but then did it out of glee seeing her get angry at the name. She took it as a jab at being called old to have kids, which fueled Naruto's sadistic enjoyment seeing her get angered at indirectly being called old. I told you not to call me that. If it wasn't for the mask, Naruto would have seen her blush. Naruto just grinned at her. As for you, she turned to the civilian. You have broken the Hokage's law. Grounds for breaking the law is public execution where you are. Yugo said. She unsheathed her blade. Wait, don't do this. I have a fam. He never finished as Naruto shot another ki blast from his finger right between the man's eyes, ending his life instantly. Why did you do that? Yugo said as she turned to face Naruto. He just shrugged. He was annoying and broke the law. Also, it was a law regarding me, so if you killed him, his family would hate you for protecting me. We don't need them hating the Anbu for simply following orders. So, I'll take the blame since they already hate me. Yugo just shook her head. Naruto always tried to take the blame whenever it was pointed at one of the people he considered family. I'll be taking the body then, Yugo said as she crouched near the dead man. Also, they arrived this morning. He is already at the academy. She then disappeared in a body flicker. Naruto frowned at that. He turned around to make his way to the academy and saw all the looks the villagers were giving him. Unless you want to end up like your friend, I suggest you shut those shitholes you call mouths. He shot a glare at them. It had the desired effect as they all scrambled as far away from him as they could. Naruto then began his trek to the academy. Hokage Tower. So, what exactly happened on your travels? Hiruzen let out a puff of smoke from his pipe as he leaned back in his seat. Before him stood Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Tsunade's apprentice, Shizune. Shizune was also holding a pig. They all looked older than when they left. Except for Tsunade, given she is using her genjutsu to make her look like she wasn't a day older than 30. Nothing much sense, a glare. I mean Hokage-sama. Jiraiya corrected himself. He had thought Hiruzen was joking when he disowned them as students. Apparently he was not. We trained Menma and traveled around. We taught him a few things that would make him the strongest of his generation without a doubt. Jiraiya idly said. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at that. That was a bold claim, considering this generation was full of clan heirs. He leaned his head down so his hat covered the smirk he had. He had a plan to test the boy's strength. And Naruto was the man to do it. He lifted his head back up, smirk gone as he looked at the strongest active ninja in the village. He knew Naruto was stronger than he let on. Naruto could easily take out his Anbu judging by his spars with Yugo. And she was made captain of all the Anbu for a reason. She was the strongest out of all of them and had a brain to match. Her only failed missions were when the target she was assigned to watch or kill were already dead before she even saw them. But then again, those weren't in the books, so there was no record of those missions. Yeah, the Gaki finally mastered the Rasengan. Tsunade chimed in. Not to mention I trained him to increase his strength since he can't use my style of chakra punches with all that tailed beast chakra. Hiruzen nodded as he turned to Shizune. And you, Shizune? What do you think of Menma's abilities? He certainly is probably the top of his class. He has trained hard over the years, so I think he would be the best student to graduate. Shizune said. Are you doubting our teachings? Tsunade said. Hiruzen had her where he wanted. Wanna make a bet on it? Academy. Naruto could already hear the commotion inside. Are you really the fourth Hokage's son? Wow, you trained with two Sannin. You're so cool. Are you really related to that idiot Naruto? And with that, Naruto walked into the classroom. All the chatter died down as they looked at Naruto walk across the room. Naruto made it halfway to his seat before a blonde boy with whiskers blocked his path. Man, when Pervy Sage and Grandma said you looked different, they weren't kidding. came the voice of the blonde boy. What's with the hair? Trying to be like that emo Uchiha over there? Sasuke scowled at his remark. Anyways, in case you didn't know, I'm your way cooler and awesome brother, Menma. Menma said arrogantly. Man, you're freakishly tall, he said while he looked up at Naruto's towering form. What a freak. If we weren't twins, I would have guessed you flunked a few times. This earned laughter from the class as Menma gave a smirk at making the class laugh. Are you done? A scowl plastered on Naruto's face as he said this. Yeah, I'm done. Good, Naruto said. Now, if you ever talk to me like that again, you'll regret it. I don't care if we have the same parents, I don't know you and I don't like you. We are not brothers. Now, I'm not a freak, as you put it. I just hit my growth spurt early. If anyone is the freak, you are. We are twins but yet I tower over you, Naruto coldly said before he took his seat next to the window. Menma was furious, his face red with anger. He was about to shout before the door opening interrupted him. Alright class, take your seats. Iruka yelled as he entered his classroom. Everyone scrambled to their seats. Naruto sat alone in his row. He didn't mind. They were a bunch bigots if they thought of him the same way their parents did. Today will be your graduation exams. Now, we are changing things up a bit. After the exams, we will be holding a little tournament after for the Hokage to make his decision since we now have an extra student. He looked at Menma, who raised his head as if he was hot shit. So, let's begin. First up, Shino Aburame. This is how the next few hours went for Naruto. He watched as student after student left the room and either returned with a headband or they never came back. Next up, Menma Namikaze. Iruka called as he came back to the room. Naruto watched Menma smirked arrogantly as he waved to his already formed fan club who only wanted him because he was the son of Minato. Sure, he was his son too, the eldest in fact, but Naruto made it very clear to everyone the first day of the academy that he didn't want to bothered by breaking the kid's arm that tried to bully him. That kid was 2 years older than them. That sent a clear message to everyone not to mess with him. Especially since Naruto had a wicked grin on his face as he did it. Menma came back into the room with a stupid grin on his face. He had his headband around his forehead. Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke got up and followed Iruka. Well, everyone but a certain Uchiha got the message. He constantly bugged Naruto to fight him. Naruto constantly refused as it would be a waste of time. That was until his self-proclaimed fangirl started bad-mouthing his parents saying that they must have been cowards if Naruto was this scared to fight Sasuke. Small flashback. You must be scared to fight Sasuke-kun. I bet your parents were a bunch of cowards. Your mom was probably a prostitute and your dad was a homeless drunk who raped her. Sakura said, trying to gain Sasuke's attention. Naruto saw red. Yeah, what she said, Dobi. Now fight me so I can show you the power of the Uchiha. Before Sasuke could taunt anymore, he lost consciousness as he went flying through the academy walls courtesy of Naruto's fist making contact with his stomach. And you, Naruto turned to the pink-haired monkey. His killing intent leaking, making Sakura lay down on the floor as she cried at the pressure he exerted. My parents were well respected a lot more than your bitch of a mother and your dad who died because of me. Sakura's eyes widened. That's right, he attacked me and I killed him. Not entirely the truth. He was publicly executed along with the others who attacked him when he was 7. He remembered hearing her mother became an alcoholic and addicted to drugs after that. Now, don't ever fucking talk to me again unless you want to end up like your pathetic father. Sakura ran home crying with an embarrassing wet spot on the front of her dress. Flashback end. Sakura never talked to Naruto again. Hell, she even dropped out of the academy altogether after that. Naruto looked at the door as Sasuke came back in the class with his headband on his head. Naruto Uzuma. Iruka paused. Sorry, Naruto Black Uzumaki. He called. Naruto stood up and walked out the class. But not before he heard Menma. Peeved, Black, who is the moron? Menma said as he and the others erupted in laughter as Naruto closed the door. Oh, is that asshole gonna get it? Naruto thought as he followed Iruka to the class to take the exam. After the exams, the entire graduating class stood outside as they waiting for the next fight to start. Naruto had passed his exam without even trying. And then after calculating all the scores, Naruto was named Rookie of the Year. Not that he was surprised. The exams were a joke. However, Menma and Sasuke looked like their puppies had just got kicked. They had caused an uproar but were silenced when Iruka said the title would go to them if they beat Naruto in a spar. Now, they were glaring holes into Naruto waiting for their fights against him. Naruto only had 2 fights scheduled. Sasuke and Menma in that order. He turned back to the match that started. Kiba versus that pale new kid, Sai. The not-so-secret root agent. Naruto was keeping an eye on him ever since he appeared in their class. He saw him talking to Root Anbu when he thought the coast was clear. He learned that Sai was there to keep an eye on Naruto, and if he got out of line, they would make their move and try to make him into Danzo's pet. That blew up when Sai placed the paralysis seal on him and Naruto punched Sai, breaking his shoulder. Naruto studied in seals, so he knew about as much as Jiraiya did. Considering Naruto was only 13, made Jiraiya look like a joke. Hell, even Minato wasn't this advanced in seals at his age. Naruto looked to the spectators and saw all the parents of the students who weren't on missions or civilians took work off to see this. He took notice of Yugo with her Anbu mask in place standing atop of the academy roof. He also noticed her second-in-command, Crow. He knew Itachi was Crow before he killed off his clan. So he had no idea who Crow was and neither did Yugo. The Hokage had just said that he was a long-time Anbu member who needed his identity to remain secret for security purposes. Naruto shrugged as he didn't really care. If the Hokage trusted him, then so did he. He saw Hiruzen along with his godparents standing in front of the bleachers looking at him. When he saw Hiruzen smirk, Naruto mirrored him and understood what he wanted. He then sweat dropped as he saw Anko holding a giant sign that said, "Go Foxy-kun, lose and we play Huntress hunts the fox." Naruto repressed a shiver at that. They did that once, and even though Naruto played the fox, Anko was the real animal. He must have made a bet with that blonde bimbo, came the voice of Kurama. I bet he did, Naruto thought. Anyways, how's the single life, Kurama? Bored yet? Naruto joked. Watch it, boy. I told you, I hated black. We just shared common ground on wanting you to be powerful. We weren't lovers. Kurama shouted before he cut the connection. Naruto smiled at that. He treated Kurama and Black as his older brothers who bickered all the time. They constantly fought like an old married couple about what Naruto should be taught for training. Winner, Sai. Iruka yelled, knocking Naruto out of his thoughts. He saw Kiba knocked out of the ring with Sai walking back to the rest of the class. Next up, Sasuke Uchiha vs Rookie of the Year, Naruto Black Uzumaki. Iruka called out. Naruto and Sasuke made their way to the ring. Bleachers. Bawahahaha. Naruto Black? What kind of name is that? Jiraiya laughed at the name Iruka said. Tsunade just chuckled. Hiruzen frowned as did Anko, considering she wasn't seated too far behind them. Are you sure it's wise to make fun of the Rookie of the Year? Hiruzen asked. After all, Orochimaru was Rookie of the Year and he kicked your ass every time. Hiruzen laughed while the people near them gasped as they heard the Hokage curse. Oh, shut it, Hiruzen said. I'm human too, damn it. So what if I cursed? I've killed before, so what is a little cursing? Hiruzen laughed. Anyways, Jiraiya awkwardly laughed. How did Naruto make Rookie of the Year? The teachers aren't playing favorites, are they? He asked with suspicion. Hiruzen frowned. Of course not. You abandoning him made sure of that he was ignored and criticized for everything he did. Just shut up and watch the fight. Hiruzen cut Jiraiya off as he saw he was going to say something. Back with Naruto. I'll show you why I deserve Rookie of the Year, Dobi. Sasuke said. Naruto just looked bored as he crossed his arms. It was a waste of his time. This match would prove nothing. What he really wanted to see was Menma. He wanted to see how strong he was after being trained by two Sannin. He knew he was still stronger but wanted to see if he would have been stunted if he went with them and didn't have Black and Kurama with him. Begin, Iruka yelled as he jumped back. As expected, Sasuke charged head first at Naruto. Sasuke went to punch Naruto and end the match in one punch. He would have succeeded if Naruto didn't sidestep him. Sasuke started to throw punches and kicks at Naruto as he dodged each one, never uncrossing his arms. Stop moving so I can hit you. Sasuke yelled in rage. You're stupid. Is that what you're going to tell enemy ninja when you're on missions? Naruto taunted. Ask them to stay still so you can hit them? Why not ask them to kill themselves while you're at it? I'm sure they will listen to one of the only Uchiha left in this world." Sasuke yelled in rage as he reached into his ninja pouch and threw shuriken at Naruto. Iruka almost screamed at Naruto to look out but stopped as he caught each one between his fingers. "Is that all, Sasuke? I've seen toddlers throw harder than you," Naruto said with an arrogant smirk. "Let's see you catch this." Sasuke yelled as he went through hand signs. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu." Sasuke yelled before he shot a fireball from his mouth, engulfing Naruto's form in flames. Jiraiya and Tsunade gasped while the crowd cheered besides the people who actually saw Naruto for who he was and not what he held. "Hey, guess he was all talk. What a loser," Menma said as he watched the fireball die down. "Serves you right, you were no match for an Uch. You missed," Naruto said as he was behind Sasuke. All the spectators watching went wide-eyed at that besides Naruto's close group of friends and family. "Good night." Naruto chopped Sasuke's neck as the Uchiha fell to the ground unconscious before he hit the dirt. Winner, Naruto Black Uzumaki. Iruka stuttered in amazement. The crowd was silent. "Woo, yeah, go Naruto." "Well, all except Anko. Now for the final match. Menma Namikaze vs Naruto Black Uzumaki." Iruka shouted out. Naruto remained where he was as the academy nurse dragged Sasuke off the arena. Menma walked across from Naruto with a wise smirk in place. "Whatever trick you pulled with that Uchiha won't work on me. I am the son of the fourth after all and trained by two Sannin, so you might as well hand over the title of Rookie of the Year." Menma said, basking in the shouts of the civilians praising him for being the fourth son. "I'll tell you what," Naruto started, "you can go all out, ninja tools and jutsu, just like Sasuke did. And all need is this." Naruto stuck his hand out and stuck his middle finger out. "One finger. All I will use is this finger. Nothing else but this finger to beat you," Naruto said with a smirk in place. Menma was shaking in rage that he had the audacity to say that to him. "Begin." Menma bolted at Naruto while throwing a kunai at Naruto. Naruto caught the kunai by sticking his finger in the ring of it. He then jumped over Menma as he tried to punch Naruto. Menma turned around and tried to kick Naruto only for Naruto to dodge that as well. This continued for a few minutes with Menma's rage growing. "You bastard." Menma then put his fingers in an all too familiar cross sign. A clone of Menma popped up next to him as the original stuck his hand out. "This technique took me a year to master." The clone started moving his hands over the original's hand and molded the chakra Menma was letting out. "This is my father's signature jutsu." The clone dispersed as Menma charged at Naruto. Rasengan. Naruto watched Menma run at what was high Genin maybe low Chunin speed. To Naruto, it was a snail's pace. Menma thrusted the Rasengan at Naruto only for Naruto to stick his hand out and attempt to catch the Rasengan. "Idiot." Menma inwardly smirked. Menma, expecting the Rasengan to do what it did, jumped back expecting Naruto to be blown back from it. Imagine his and his godparents' shock when Naruto held the Rasengan in his hand. "Wow, I'd say I was impressed if this would have done any real damage should it have landed," Naruto said as he inspected the Rasengan. "Like you could do any better. Only 3 people alive know how to make that and I'm one of them." Menma yelled. "Now let it go. I bet that's the only way you could ever use a Rasengan is from taking it from my hand." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Really? It just chakra manipulation in maintaining its form," Naruto said. "I mean, I have completed and made many variations already." With that, Naruto added chakra to the Rasengan as it grew. It passed the size of a basketball and continued to grow. He finished when it completely covered the sun and casted a shadow over the spectators. Think of the Rasengan Boruto uses on Momoshiki when Naruto powers it up. See? Not hard at all. He then dispersed it as if all that condensed chakra was never there. Jiraiya stood off to the sides, eyes as wide as saucers and mouth gaping like a fish while it started to foam. "Not so special now are you?" Naruto taunted. Menma stood there angry. A jutsu that his father created himself was being used by his talentless brother, according to his godparents, was able to make a Rasengan the size of the Hokage monument. He clenched his fists as he shook in rage. A red shroud of chakra started to cover his body with one tail as his eyes turned red with a slit pupil. "Oh, you have another form too?" Naruto asked with mock curiosity. "Yeah, and I'll end this match with it." Menma said with a demonic voice. Then that makes things interesting. Naruto was actually surprised that Menma had enough control to hold the cloak of the tailed beast's chakra. Though, he didn't live being hated, so he didn't have to worry about his emotions taking control. Spectators, we should stop the match, Hokage-sama, Jiraiya said, concerned. Naruto won't last against Menma while in that state. Menma is too strong now, regardless of Naruto's skill. Jiraiya was still shocked that Naruto was able to make a Rasengan that massive and then just cancel it without destroying everything around it. And why is he using the beast's chakra? Especially against a fellow Konoha shinobi? The Hokage scolded. That's not the point. The Nine Tails chakra is dangerous to others. Tsunade backed up Jiraiya. And that is your fault. You said Menma was the strongest and that no one could compete with him. And look, he is using the chakra of the beast that nearly destroyed this village against his own brother. Hiruzen coldly stated, the match will go on. Though, if Naruto is hurt or injured because of that chakra, then you will pay dearly. No one saw Hiruzen's hidden smirk. Naruto wouldn't even be touched. But, failure to listen to your Hokage's orders will lead to you two being interrogated by Ibiki and stripped of your ninja license. Do you understand? Hi, back to the fight. Since you seem to be going all out, it's only fair if I do as well. Naruto said with a shrug. Psych, as if I would show all my secrets in front of prying eyes. He thought, look closely or you might miss it. He taunted. Menma, along with the crowd, watched as Naruto hunched over a bit and pulled his hands into fists. Hua, Naruto grunted. A bright, golden light enveloped Naruto's form. When it died down, Naruto's hair got spikier and turned a bright yellow. His eyes turned from blue to a seafoam green. And a yellow aura surrounded his body as small streaks of lighting were in the yellow shroud. The spectators were having trouble staying upright at the pressure Naruto was releasing. They couldn't sense it, but they felt as if a giant weight was pushing them down. Everyone besides Anko, Hiruzen, and Yugo who had seen this form, were struggling to watch. The three who seen it already knew that Naruto was even suppressing the amount of pressure he was releasing. This was maybe 10% of the entire pressure he would normally use when he transforms. Naruto's form took a deeper tone to it as he spoke. Is my form. I call it, Super Saiyan. Naruto settled into his fighting pose. Now, are you ready? I don't care if you dyed your hair. I'll beat you. Menma phased out of view at what Naruto thought to be mid-Jonin speed. Menma appeared behind Naruto, rearing his fist back and aimed for his face. He was shocked when Naruto turned faster than he could see and punched him clear across the jaw, dislocating it as Menma went flying back and hit the wall of the academy. His chakra cloak disappeared before he hit it. Winner, Naruto Black Uzumaki. With Hiruzen. Well, I expect you to be at the hospital first thing in the morning, Tsunade. And don't forget, every week, you're to teach one class and one team of Chunin and Genin about medical ninjutsu. Kami knows we need more medics in the world. Hiruzen walked off, leaving a gaping Jiraiya and Tsunade before they rushed after the nurse. Hours later, Naruto was currently walking to Training Field 9. He was being led by his sensei, Yugo, while giving Anko a piggyback ride. He was wearing his normal attire but had his headband tied around his right arm with a black cloth. They had just left the academy after Iruka announced the teams. Teams 1 through 6, as they always were every year, were comprised of all civilian kids. Most likely not to make it after the test they were supposed to conduct. That didn't mean they couldn't be ninjas. They were going to most likely fill up spots in the village that required ninja training. Like the barrier team, or sorting out the missions that other ninja did. They had spent too much time in the academy just to be civilians again. It would be idiotic to send potential ninja away. As for Team 7, that was a bomb waiting to go off. It was comprised of Sasuke Uchiha, Menma Namikaze, and Sai. Menma was still in the hospital when Iruka announced teams, so they would take the Genin test tomorrow. However, their personalities would certainly clash. Sasuke was arrogant because he believed the ground he walked on should be worshipped for his family name. Menma was just like Sasuke but a lot more loud and boisterous. And Sai, being the emotionless and socially inept root member he was, said what came to mind, which led to angering whoever he was talking. How they were going to work together was a mystery to him, especially with Kakashi as their sensei. Then there was Team 8. It consisted of Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, and Kiba Inuzuka plus his nindog Akamaru. The ideal tracking and infiltration team due to Shino's bugs and Hinata's Byakugan. All led by Kurenai Yuhi. Then Team 9 was still a current team led by Mike Guy. And Team 10 was led by Hiruzen's own son, Asuma Sarutobi. Hiruzen always said that if he wasn't there to see Asuma born, he would have assumed Asuma was a Nara given how lazy he was. Which seemed like the case when he picked Choji Akamichi, Shikamaru Nara, and Ino Yamanaka. He just hoped they were already friends and would be the next Ino Shika-Cho combination just like their parents. Then there was his team. Well, more like two-man squad. He was a part of Team 11, which consisted of him and his sensei, Yugo Izuki. Anko was just there because she had nothing better to do. He was given the title of Special Genin. Basically like a Special Jonin but in Genin form. As for Yugo, it was the Hokage's and her own decision that she would be the best to be Naruto's sensei. That left Crow taking up captain of the Anbu in Yugo's stead. Faster Foxy Koi, Anko pointed as she made a giddy up motion on his back. We are already here, Anko. Yugo said. Anko looked around and saw they were already on field 11. She jumped off of Naruto's back and went to sit on a log. Okay Naruto, we are going to have a little spar. Since you would undoubtedly pass the Genin test, we might as well get started early on training. Yugo addressed her student. Okay, sensei. Naruto boredly said. Yugo's eyebrow twitched. She hated when Naruto dismissed everything that he took no interest in. He didn't show interest unless it was a fight with a strong fighter or... She smirked. What about a proposition then? Naruto raised a brow. And that would be? A reward for the winner. If I win, you have to show interest for the rest of your life and be my slave for a week. Naruto's eyebrows shot up to his hairline while Anko was blasted back by a massive nosebleed at the thought of her watching Yugo treat Naruto like a slave. Not like that, she said with a massive blush. You would be my personal butler for a week. Cook and clean for me. Naruto shrugged. He could do with that if his reward was decent enough. And what do I get if I win? Yugo smirked. I'll treat you to whatever you want to eat. No limit. Naruto grinned like he never had before. He had been treated to food before but always had a limit out on him. There was no way he was gonna pass this opportunity up. Deal, Naruto said. One more thing. This will be a Kenjutsu spar only. Taijutsu is okay but no Gen or Ninjutsu. Just our swords and fists. Yugo said as she drew her katana. I'm fine with that. Naruto stuck his right arm out as purple ki manifested around it until it extended past his hand by a couple of feet making a keyblade. Same one Black has in Super. Anko jumped between them after she recovered from her perverted thoughts. Begin, she yelled as Naruto and Yugo charged each other. Hours later, Team 11 plus Anko were currently seated in the Akamichi barbecue restaurant. Yugo was crying comically as Naruto wolfed down his 50th plate of beef. Chalk it up to him absorbing Black Saiyan genes for his abnormal appetite. From what Black told him, the original Goku along with the other Saiyans had a giant appetite. One that Black, and now Naruto, had developed. Anko just laughed at Yugo's misery as she had her own plate of food. Naruto soon joined her in laughter. Things were starting to look up. The end. Psych lol. Time skip 3 months. Yugo waited patiently as she and Naruto watched Team 7 walk out with some drunken old man. This would be their 30th mission this week. And it was only Tuesday. Naruto had eaten up 1 year's worth of A and S rank mission payments. She and Naruto had been taking as many missions as they could so she could try and get that money back. 3 months and she only made about 10% of what Naruto had eaten that day. Ah, Team 11. Just the team I wanted to see. Naruto and Yugo walked up to the desk. I have another C-rank mission for you too. Yugo inwardly cheered while Naruto just seemed indifferent about the whole ordeal. Send him in. They turned as they saw a young man that seemed to be in his early 20s. He has ink black eyes and has long, dark brown hair. He also wears a forehead protector symbolizing his shinobi status. He wears gray pants, a green shirt, and shinobi sandals. In addition to his outfit, he has gray shoulder pad on his left shoulder with a brown strap over. Hello, I am Shibuki. I am the leader of the village hidden in the waterfall. 3 days later, Naruto couldn't take it anymore. This man, no child in a man's body, was driving him insane. He was scared by the smallest of things, from a frog jumping in front of them to birds flying out of the bushes. How he made it to Chunin was beyond him. He wanted to kill him just because it would bring peace and quiet. But that would result in a failed mission, and Yugo wouldn't like it that much. It's not like he would actually kill the man. It was just a thought. A brilliant and stress-relieving thought. We're here. Naruto turned and looked at Shibuki. They stopped at the edge of a small pond that had a waterfall flowing out of the rocks at the other side. It is a long trip back, so as a show of hospitality, I would like to offer you two a place to stay inside the village. Naruto felt like there was a but coming. But, there it is. I have to blindfold you two and guide you through the secret entrance. Even if we are allied villages, that is not to say we will be allies tomorrow should anything drastic happen. Thank you for your generous offer. What do you think, Naruto? Yugo asked the raven-haired teen. My feet are killing me. I can go for days rest or two. Shibuki nodded as blindfolded the two Konoha nen. Naruto and Yugo were then dragged through the water caverns by Shibuki for minutes. After they hit the 10-minute mark, they emerged from the water and removed their blindfolds. What they saw was a sight to take in. A big, beautiful tree was in the center of the village that part of it went into the giant lake they had. The homes and stores were scattered on one side of the village, while what looked to be the cage tower was in the center. Though, tower was a bit of an exaggeration. It was just a two-story building. Shibuki turned and handed them each a piece of paper. Those will allow you to stay at our local inn free of charge. Please, feel free to walk around and enjoy your stay. Shibuki walked away, probably to go sort of the mission details and pay. Naruto, he turned to look at Yugo. Don't do anything that would get us in trouble. Naruto waved her off as he started his stroll. He walked through the village and wondered how this village was still intact. They weren't too keen on outsiders, judging by the looks they were giving him. So how did they get any money without trading and letting outsiders in, as that was a big source of Konoha's income? Naruto pondered this as he walked around the lake. He stopped as he took notice of a girl around his age standing on top of a rock. He noticed he was on the opposite end of the lake, where there were no houses or stores. What do you want? Here to ridicule me after the villagers told you what I am? She had a petite frame, a darker skin tone similar to his own, if only a bit darker. She wore an orange clip in her short, layered mint-green hair that matched her eye color, which was also orange. Her ninja outfit consisted of a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. Her forehead protector was worn on her right arm. She also carried a cylindrical object in red wrapping on her back. Naruto thought she was as beautiful as Anko was. Naruto, I know, Kurama. Well, are you just gonna stare at me all day or what? She said, irritated. Hey 7, I'm 9. Naruto said. Name's Naruto Black. She narrowed her eyes at what he said. I'm Fu. Nice to meet you, Fu. Naruto said with a smile as he stretched out his hand to her. Fu just eyed his hand but didn't make a motion to return the gesture. What do you want? She practically spat out. Naruto just pulled his hand back to his side, but his smile turned from one of happiness to a sad one. That was just a kind gesture to a fellow Jinchuriki. I wanted to know how your life had been up till now. He answered, but by your reaction alone, I can tell you didn't have a great one. Yeah, well, what was your first clue? I was meant to have a hard life. Human sacrifice, right? She turned around so he couldn't see her tears fall. What would you know anyways? I bet you were treated like a normal human being from those tree huggers anyway. Yes, I was treated like a normal human being with those tree huggers. Fu clenched her fists at his words. She was gonna turn and yell at him, but he spoke again. Being starved while living in an orphanage for the first 3 years of my life was normal. And then being kicked out at age 4 and living on the streets for a week before an Anbu found me starving to death in an alleyway is the way 4-year-olds usual go through, right? Fu covered her mouth with her hands. She had it bad, but he sounded as if he could have died at any moment. Being yelled at and chased away from stores for being a demon, or being overpriced for rotten food. And let's not forget about the academy purposely giving me low test scores when I entered, hoping I would fail and never graduate. A normal life, right? Naruto looked at her and saw she was openly sobbing. I'm so sorry, Fu said between sobs. I didn't know. I thought I had it bad with the name calling and being forced to live away from the village, but you had it worse than me." She turned around to face him. "I'm sore." She got cut off as Naruto pulled her into a comforting hug. She weeped harder into his chest as he rubbed her back. "I didn't say all those things about me to sound like a jerk. I said it to show you that it doesn't matter if a Jinchuriki comes from the nicest village, we are all treated the same. We are seen as nothing but demons, as the civilians, and nothing but weapons to most Kage." He didn't tell her about the beating when he was 7 or the black eye that one villager gave him, but she didn't need to know that. "We have hard lives. I've even heard that the Jinchuriki of the One Tails is a psychopathic killer. Which his own father did to him. What type of father does that to their child?" Naruto informed her. They stayed silent. The only sound was the small waves of the lake and the sniffles from Fu. Naruto rubbed her back, reassuring her that everything was fine. "Why don't you tell me about yourself and I'll tell you about myself?" Naruto told her, "That is what friends do, right?" Her eyes widened at that. "Friends?" She looked up and saw him giving her the kindest smile she has ever seen. Sure, Shibuki was nice and helped her out, but he was more of a brother figure than a friend. Her first friend. She nodded her head rapidly into his chest. Naruto went to unwrap his arms from her body, but Fu quickly wrapped hers around his frame. He gave her a puzzled look while she had a blush on her cheeks. "Can we stay like this? I mean, friends do hug after all, right?" She buried her cheery red face into his chest to hide her embarrassment. Naruto just chuckled and wrapped his arms around her again. "Sure, we can stay like this." They then began to share stories of their personal lives with each other. Both good and bad. Naruto learned a lot about Fu. Her likes and dislikes. How she liked eating healthier foods such as fruit and vegetables. Sure, she ate meat on occasion and was no way worried about her figure, but she generally enjoyed the tastes of fruits. She also enjoyed swimming in her free time and even enjoyed flying around. Something he learned when she told him that Chome, the 7 tails, gave her wings and she had the ability to fly. He was quite jealous and planned to have a nice chat with Kurama later about any special traits like that. He also learned that she hated perfume and cologne. Considering she was holding a bug and they literally had bug spray, she didn't like anything that could be sprayed. She liked the natural scent of things and didn't like artificial smells. She also hated arrogant people who believed they were better than others and ninja who believed that just because they were a high rank that anyone below them was weak. Such as the Jonin who believed they were stronger than the Genin they meet. There were numerous Genin that could take down Jonin. Itachi came to mind. He was barely in the academy due to skipping years ahead and spent less time as a Genin before he was inducted into Anbu at the age of 10. He then became an Anbu captain of his own squad at age 13. Shortly after all this, he murdered all of his clan besides Sasuke. Someone so skilled at that age was scary beyond all doubt. And Naruto couldn't wait until he had the chance to fight him. The thought just got the blood flowing through his veins. It was exhilarating, and throughout the whole ordeal, the more she talked and shared, she became more boisterous and excited. He smiled at her, showing her true self. She wore a genuine smile on her face while they talked. "So this is where you were, Naruto." Naruto was broken from his thoughts when he heard a voice behind him. He turned his head to be greeted with the familiar sight of Yugo. Fu also decided to take a peek over Naruto's shoulder and saw a beautiful woman with purple hair and a body kunoichis would die for. She then blushed and separated herself when she saw the woman's teasing smile. "Hey Yugo. I was just with my friend, Fu." Naruto turned to Fu. "Fu, this is my sensei and mother." Yugo groaned when he said that last bit. "Mother." Fu yelled. "But you don't look like you're a day over 20. Yugo blushed at that. She was actually 22. "I'm not his mother. If anything, I'm like his older sister." "Yugo Izuki." Yugo responded. "Nice to meet you, Yugo." "I'm Fu." Fu introduced herself. Yugo gave her a kind smile before it turned into a devious grin. She rarely had times to tease Naruto and she was going to take any advantage she could. Something Naruto noticed as he narrowed his eyes at her, wondering what she was up to. "Amazing, Naruto. Your first mission outside of the village and you already picked up another girlfriend." Fu blushed but then gasped. "He already has a girlfriend?" Fu thought a bit downtrodden. Even if they only knew each other for a few hours, she could honestly say that she had some type of feelings for the whiskered boy that went beyond that of friendship. I wonder what Anko would say about you cheating on her with a foreign kunoichi. But, I can't say I'm disappointed with your choice. She certainly is stunning. Fu's cheeks went atomic at that. Though her thoughts were down because he was already taken and she wouldn't be able to act on those feelings she had no matter how small they were. Though, she turned to Naruto and donned a look as if she was thinking though Naruto knew it was just for show. Isn't she always talking about getting you to have other women? If I remember correctly, I believe she wanted you to have a harem so she can have playthings, correct? Naruto just smacked his face while Fu had an expression of shock and a hint of hopefulness. Something Yugo noticed and couldn't help but grin on the inside. This is going to be so much fun. She thought at the teasing opportunities. Alright lover boy, let's head to the inn Shibuki showed me. We're leaving tomorrow afternoon and I want to stock up on supplies in the morning. Yugo informed him. Hi, Naruto said as he turned to Fu. Good night Fu, a small smile on his face. Fu just nodded her head with a small blush still on her cheeks. Naruto turned to follow Yugo as she started walking to the village only for him to feel a small tug on his sleeve. He turned to see Fu holding his sleeve with her head down. Everything you said was true, right? She whispered in a shaky voice but Naruto was still able to hear her. It wasn't a lie, right? You won't leave me all alone again, will you? Naruto could hear it, the desperation and hope in her voice. The longing of a true friend, someone that wasn't just messing with her emotions only to abandon her. Naruto pulled her into a hug as he felt her stiffen. Of course, she panicked as she didn't know what part he was agreeing to. What kind of friend would I be if I didn't see you in person and say goodbye? He said with a grin that made her heart beat faster. She just nodded her head, afraid her voice would fail her. See y'all later then, Fu. Naruto said as he released her and chased after Yugo. Fu just clutched her hand above her heart. She didn't know what this feeling was, but she knew that Naruto was the cause of it. She knew she found him attractive and seen couples together and break up, but this feeling was confusing her. After all, how does one know what love is when you never experienced it? Fu just turned and made her way to her home that she and Shibuki had built. It was still inside the village but near one of the walls surrounding the village away from others. She was never aware of her village leader watching her interaction with Naruto. You really care for that boy, don't you Fu? Shibuki said as he walked out from behind the rock that was behind where the duo were standing moments before. I hope I can do something for you. I don't want you to lose your first friend. He muttered before he went to his own home, pondering on how he can make sure Fu won't ever have to say goodbye to her new friend. Next day, Naruto and Fu could be seen walking through the village together. Fu with a wide smile on her face as she talked animatedly to Naruto, ignoring the looks of disgust and hateful glares from the villagers. Naruto listened intently to everything she said and responded when he felt the need to. He had a small smile but also held a bit of a sneer as he looked at the villagers that were openly showing their hate towards Fu, and by proxy himself for associating with the demon. Oh, how Naruto wanted to obliterate them all just for their disgusting looks and the hatred rolling off of them. But he wouldn't for Fu. Fu had told him that all the pain and suffering she endured, she didn't want them to suffer. She would never forgive them but she didn't want to sink to their level. Naruto did not share her mindset. He believed the weak should know their place and when they stepped out of line, exterminated. Black had attempted to instill his mindset to end all mortals but Naruto saw it as a nuisance and a waste of energy. He wasn't lazy, he just didn't want to waste his time doing that unless provoked. Okay, maybe he was a bit lazy. But what Naruto wanted, which was mostly due to his Saiyan DNA, was to find and fight strong opponents. He wasn't going to get a good fight from civilians who could easily be taken down by entry-level academy students. Though Naruto was going off of the clan heirs since the civilian students were just as weak as their parents. They just didn't have the natural instinct and tough bodies clans had. Hell, even civilian clan members were enough to be a genin and maybe even chunin to some level. But he wanted to find someone who could give him the fight of his life. And from Black's stories and memories, he was just itching to fight Goku. So, what are you thinking about? Fu suddenly asked. Naruto shook his head of his thoughts as he heard her question. He turned and looked at her. Nothing important, just a thought I had of a certain someone that I can't wait to meet. Fu frowned at that. He's talking about his girlfriend no doubt. Fu thought. She was jealous of his girlfriend. though she couldn't figure out if it was because of how lucky she was to have someone as nice and caring as Naruto or because of this new feeling she had stirring on the inside. My blood just tingles at the thought of seeing him, Naruto exclaimed, not realizing the choice of words he spewed out. Fu had a look of shock on her face. Is he gay? Fu thought worriedly. Did he just claim to have a girlfriend as a cover-up? I can't wait to fight him, Naruto continued, which Fu sighed in relief. She was fine with him being gay, but her heart clenched at the thought of not having a chance of being with him. He was the strongest person my sensei ever faced, and he is a man of unimaginable power that gave my sensei a great fight. Fu looked at him curiously. You want to fight someone your sensei had a good fight against? I know she looks strong, but do you think you can fight the guy who faced her? Naruto just turned to look at her and realized her confusion. Yeah, Yugo is my sensei, but she isn't the only one I had. My other sensei was the strongest man I know, and no doubt the strongest from our world. Naruto told her, with her not thinking about the way he said, our world. He was a god after all. Fu looked at him strangely. It was pretty arrogant for someone to claim they were a god. Though, Naruto had proved he was trustworthy, so she just chalked it up to him being an amazing shinobi. You also said, was. Did he pass away? Fu asked. Naruto looked a little sad at that. I'm sore. It's fine. Naruto cut her off. He did pass away a few years ago. He expended too much energy and died of exhaustion. It wasn't a total lie considering Naruto's seal was draining Black's ki over the years. He was a good man who had a wild and outlandish dream. Naruto could remember when Black told him his dream. Though, Black wasn't wrong in explaining his ideas, it just didn't bother Naruto as much. What was his dream? Fu asked. Peace. That's what he told her. Though not wrong, he just left out the part of exterminating all mortal life to achieve it. He doubted Fu would look at him the same if that was his sensei's goal. That is something few people want. Fu muttered. Did his ideals stick with you? She asked him. No, Naruto said, and he saw her frown a bit. He wanted to achieve that peace through unconventional means. I, for one, do not care about having the world live in peace. I only wish to have a peaceful life with my family. He told her. Though, I don't intend to be anyone's punching bag because I want peace. Naruto remembered the encounter the day of his graduation exam. The people who are born weak desire peace in the world, so they no longer have to fight. Though Black wanted them erased because all they did was cause wars, rebuild and appoint new leaders only to start new wars. This would bring peace, but no doubt not the way people wanted. And I'm not saying they're physically weak but also mentally. They talk about forgiveness and turning the other way, but what if that person killed your family? Your parents for something so trivial or out of revenge? His hands clenched at the masked man who killed his parents by releasing Kurama. Take Jiraiya of the Sannin for example. His ultimate goal is to achieve everlasting peace. Naruto told her. What about him? What's wrong with wanting peace? Fu thought Naruto was going to go all emo, but he kept his cool. He wants to achieve this by forgiveness. But what no one knows besides a select few is that he is looking for his ex-teammate, Orochimaru. Fu shivered at his name. Orochimaru was a feared shinobi, and the countless despicable acts were spread throughout the elemental nations. He wants to find Orochimaru and bring him back to the village and become friends once again. But do you honestly think that will happen with all of the terrible things Orochimaru has done? The countless kidnapping and experimentations, the murders and deaths from said experiments? All from Konoha citizens and shinobi no less. He is a dangerous and sick man. He'd be lucky to get the death penalty without having any torture done to him. Naruto spat. Naruto was mostly mad at the fact that Jiraiya would sooner go after and chase a murdering and unforgiving shinobi than take care of his own godson. Some people aren't worth saving. Fu looked at the ground for a few moments before speaking. I understand. You can't just let someone like that run free. The amount of pain and suffering those people's families went through. It would be a slap in the face if they saw the person who brought their family pain and suffering to walk around freely. Fu said, "What is your dream, Naruto?" Your real dream. Naruto turned to her. My dream is to live in peace with my family without any nuisances bothering us, he said with sincerity, but his Saiyan side took over, and to fight strong warriors. Living in constant peace would get boring for a person like me. I want to fight strong people and feel the rush of battle. He boisterously yelled. Fu couldn't help but giggle at the fire in his eyes as he talked about fighting. She smiled. At least he just wanted to fight strong opponents who passed by instead of starting a war just because he was a warmonger. Naruto coughed to get himself under control at the sounds of Fu's giggling. He cursed his strong Uzumaki genes for making him get overexcited. He learned through Kurama that Uzumakis get excited easily over something they are passionate about. Don't get him wrong, he loved his parents for their selfless sacrifice. Even Black praised them for giving their lives to save their children's lives. Black did see some mortals as more than a stain under his boot. Naruto just wished the Uzumakis were a more level-headed bunch. He sighed. It could have been worse. He could have got his mom's verbal tick. He winced as if he was just smacked in the back of the head. He turned around only to see no one around him. He shook his head. Even in death, mothers were scary. Fu, she turned to look at him. What is your dream? He asked her. Her dream? She hadn't really thought about it. What did she want? What was her goal in life? She wished she wasn't a Jinchuriki, but that would result in her death. She stood still as she thought about it. She looked at Naruto and stared at him, making him slightly uncomfortable at her sudden gaze. She stared at him for a few moments and that feeling in her chest grew even more intense. It felt as if it was hurting, but not physically but emotionally. It was as if it was yelling at her to tell Naruto something, but she didn't know what. She stared into his eyes and then she saw it. She saw images of couples holding hands and kissing. Older couples walking with babies in their arms or children by their sides. How she longed to have a family of her own. How she wished someone could see her as Fu, a normal person and not a Jinchuriki, a demon and weapon. Then those images were changed. She saw the same couple holding hands and kissing and the couple walking with their families. But she saw herself as the women in the images this time. She turned to look at the man in the image and he turned to her and smiled lovingly. It was Naruto. Naruto was holding hands with her and walking with their kids. She saw the girl walking around had green hair with whisker marks on her cheeks. She then saw the baby Naruto was holding had black hair but her orange eyes. She knew what she wanted now. She knew what she was feeling and what she wanted to say to Naruto now. My dream? What I want in life? Naruto nodded to her. What I want in life is... Boom! An explosion went off and shook the entire village, disrupting Fu's words. They turned and saw that an explosion happened near the tree in the center of the village. They saw villagers running from that area yelling about an attack and missing Nen. Sorry Fu, but we have to put that on hold. Fu looked saddened but understood the situation. Everyone, Naruto yelled, get to your homes and hide. You'll be safe as long as you stay hidden. They ignored him as they kept running. Naruto clenched his hands. This is why he hated interacting with humans. They never listened. He tried things Yugo's way, and now he was gonna do things his way. Leave them be. If they died, it's on their hands, not his. Let's go Fu. If they don't want to listen, we can't help them. She nodded and they began their approach to the explosion. They went around the backside of the massive tree and climbed up it. They looked at the side where the explosion was and saw there were about 20 or so missing Nen. He then heard Fu gasp. He turned and saw her pointing to one of the missing Nen. He was standing with his back to them so he couldn't see the ninja's face. Around him were 30 or so villagers tied and bound. From kids to the elderly. That's Suin. He was one of the best jonin in the village before he went missing. Fu Whisper yelled. He just disappeared in the middle of the night and was marked a missing Nen. Naruto looked back down and saw he was holding a bottle of water. Why is he holding a bottle of water in the middle of this? I understand if you're parched, but holding it during an invasion seems dumb if you ask me. Naruto voiced. Oh no. Naruto turned to Fu. That's the hero water. Hero water? Fu nodded at his question. The hero water grants whoever drinks it 10 times the amount of chakra they have and makes it more potent. Fu explained. That's a bit much, don't you think? Naruto's sweat dropped. Fu nodded her head. It is, but also comes at a price. The person who drinks it also loses their life by how many times their chakra is increased. So one sip could increase your chakra by 10 times but make you lose 10 years off your life. Fu explained. That is how Shibuki's father, the former leader of the village, lost his life. He consumed too much hero water to protect the village. He saved it but lost his life due to the effects of the water. The power boost doesn't last long but the side effects are immediate. Naruto. Kurama spoke inside his mind. What now, furball? Do you know it's been 2 days since I tried talking to you? Naruto yelled. Shut it. I was thinking about something that felt familiar. Kurama shouted back. And I was right. After listening to your little girlfriend's explanation, this hero water is as I feared, along with this tree. Kurama told him. How so? That perked Naruto's interest as he looked around at the tree. Kurama sounded slightly worried. Anything that worried him was bound to be bad. You remember the story I told you of how chakra came to be? Naruto nodded. Then you remember the Shinju tree, correct? A look of realization appeared on Naruto's face. You mean? I believe so. Though, this tree was probably made from one of the branches that Kagaya must not have absorbed. But that water is similar to a case that happened before in a small town centuries ago. They were a strong fighting village, though they rarely lived past the age of 20. It was found that they had a Shinju branch beneath them that was giving them chakra-laced water into their water supply that boosted their chakra at the cost of their life force. Naruto frowned. That was bad. Power from the tree that created the 10 tails was not good to be in the hands of a power-hungry idiot. Yugo landed next to them and they acknowledged each other. Yugo went to say something but saw the look Naruto had. The look where he is talking to his pet, as she put it, to tease the mighty beast. Though, this tree isn't as potent as that branch centuries ago. This one seems to be feeding the environment instead of draining it and the living beings around here. Kurama continued. I guess just as we are able to think differently than the 10 tails, the Shinju branch was able to make its own choice. But that hero water is still dangerous if it was produced by this tree regardless of its intentions. How do we stop him if he drinks it? I think we would be able to take him if it was just him against us? Naruto asked. But there are at least 20 missing nin all chunin or jonin that I've seen in the bingo book. Nothing you can do but try to prevent him from drinking it. If he does, you may have to go all out against him. He was an A- rank nin. With that water, he will easily best you and Yugo if you risk holding back. Naruto nodded and thought for a moment. Slowly, he grinned as he realized what Fu had explained about the hero water. He looked at the two women beside him. What did he say? Yugo questioned. Remember when I told you there was a story behind how chakra came to be? Naruto told her and she nodded. He just told her, and the other select few from their group, about how chakra wasn't always with humans. That there was another force for the cause of chakra being embedded into humans. Well, this tree and that water are all part of something called the Shinju tree. The Shinju is responsible for chakra and the tailed beasts were created from the Shinju. Naruto gave them the short version of it. Yugo looked a bit shocked while Fu held her head as Chomei yelled inside the seal. What's the matter, Fu? Yugo asked the tanned-skinned girl. Chomei is freaking out. He keeps saying, Shinju, and, Kagaya. Fu said as she clutched her head. He probably couldn't sense it since her seal is mostly still intact, unlike how you've been slowly breaking yours. Kurama informed Naruto. Naruto moved to her and cupped her face. Fu stopped her squirming as Naruto put a hand on her shoulder and stared into her eyes. Fu, listen to me. Everything is okay. Chomei is freaking out about something that caused destruction a long time ago. Naruto said. I need you to calm down and to calm Chomei also. We need you two to work together so we can stop these people. Just calm down, okay? Fu nodded and took a deep breath. She then closed her eyes and was silent for a few moments. She then opened them with a look of determination in her eyes. Chomei and I are ready to go. Naruto nodded and looked back to Yugo. What's the plan, sensei? Yugo was silent for a few seconds before she came up with a plan. You and Fu will be in charge of taking on the other missing nin. Naruto, make as many clones as you can and have them grab the captured villagers and get them to safety. I'll take on Suin and try to stop him from taking the water. They nodded and got ready to make their move. Oh, and Naruto, he looked back to his sensei. Once the villagers are safe, let loose. Naruto got a sadistic grin at Yugo's order. This was going to be fun. With Suin, come on out, Shibuki. Suin yelled as he stood before his prisoners. Stop being a coward and accept your death like a man. The prisoners looked on in fear as Suin marched over towards them. He saw a young boy no older than 8. He grabbed him by his hair and dragged him in the middle of the crowd. Show yourself, or are you that big of a coward that you'll let this young boy die? Suin yelled as he held a kunai to the boy's throat. The boy didn't dare to swallow in fear of cutting his throat. Your father must be turning in his grave right now. He gave his life to protect this village and look at you. Hiding like the coward you are while this little boy is begging for you to save his life." He pulled the kunai back and motioned towards the rest of the captives. "When I'm done with this boy, those will be next. And after that, this village will burn to the ground." Suin switched his grip on the kunai and brought it to strike the boy between his eyes. Clang! Another kunai came flying and knocked the one in Suin's hand away. Before he could register what happened, another came towards him but cut the boy's hair just below where Suin was gripping him. The boy, taking advantage of the confusion, scrambled away from Suin and made his way back to the other captives. "The only coward I see is you." Suin turned to see a group of 3 people standing on the other side of him. The first was a fairly tall woman with long purple hair tied in a ponytail. The next was none other than Waterfall's resident Jinchuriki. The last was bit surprising but he smirked. "Well, what a great honor this is." Suin gloated. The son of none other than the 4th Hokage. Naruto and Yugo narrowed their eyes while Fu had a look of surprise. Naruto never told her he was the son of the fastest shinobi in history. "To think I would face the son of one of the most feared shinobi in history." Suin smirked. "Though, with your brother being trained by 2 Sannin while you were left behind, I can only hope you won't end up as a smear on my shoes. If this was your brother, I would be itching to fight him." Fu looked over at Naruto. "How come? He didn't tell you he was the son of the 4th Hokage or that he had a brother?" Suin cut her off. Fu looked back at Suin. "That's easy. He was seen as worthless to his godparents, which happened to be the 2 loyal Sannin. They left him behind in that village full of tree huggers to train his brother who holds the power of the 9 tails." Naruto was starting to be wary of the Leaf's security now. This was important information that he was spewing out. He must be embarrassed to say any of this, so he chose to hide it from you. "How do I know this information?" Suin cut off Yugo, who tried to speak. "Your village tends to have loose lips about the people they hate. The will of fire and trustworthiness that you preach is nothing but a farce. All it took was a shinobi from Kumo to go undercover as a civilian in your village before they talked about the demon brat. That was Naruto here," Suin said, though none of them knew a certain warmonger let the Kumo spy in the village. "Now, let's get this over with." Suin went to drink from the hero water but had to stop as a kunai stopped him. When he looked up, he had to jump back from a katana swipe courtesy of Yugo. Then all hell broke loose. The other missing nin charged in at Naruto and Fu as Suin and Yugo seemed to be pushing each other out of the area. Naruto created about 30 clones. Half went to the prisoners while the other half went to fight most of the missing nin. Naruto turned to Fu. "Don't hold back. If you hesitate to kill, you will die." Naruto yelled. "They don't care for others' lives, so don't try to spare them." Fu nodded, but her eyes widened in horror as she saw a nin with the symbol for Kumo crossed out appear behind Naruto with a tanto raised to behead him. In less than a second, Naruto dropped to a crouch, brought his hand back and made a small blue, spinning ball of pure chakra that Fu had only seen in pictures. Rasengan. Naruto slammed the Rasengan into the nin's gut, stopping his forward slash. No damage was shown besides the man's shirt tearing around his stomach, but Fu knew more was going on judging by the blood streaming out the man's mouth. Then the man was sent flying back as the Rasengan bursted and propelled him into the wall. He then fell to the ground unmoving. "Dead. Don't hesitate," Naruto yelled before he jumped into a fight where 2 more missing nins were fighting one of his shadow clones. "With Yugo and Suin, you're extremely good," Suin said as he parried Yugo's katana with his water sword. Yugo just kept her posture and kept attacking him head-on and was pushing him back. Suin was starting to sweat. He was no chump considering he was entrusted to teach Suin and multiple other ninja and had amazing chakra control. But that didn't compare to an ex-Anbu captain that was an S rank in the bingo books. He was being pushed back and was close to being sliced by Yugo's blade. He needed to get away and drink the hero water. On her latest swing, she pulled back a bit too much and that allowed Suin to create a water wall without hand signs which shocked Yugo. That allowed enough time to allow Suin to jump back great distance and take out the hero water. "It was a great fight," Suin said as he took the top off of the bottle. "Too bad you die here today." Suin then brought the hero water to his mouth and took a big swig of it. The moment he stopped drinking, a shroud of chakra started to surround him. The aura it was the most potent Yugo has sensed coming from a non-Jinchuriki. She instantly felt his reserves increase to what she could compare to a lower-tailed beast's chakra level. With Naruto and Fu moments earlier, Naruto and Fu were effectively taking out the other shinobi, but it would have gone faster if Naruto didn't have to worry about the kunoichi holding the same boy from earlier hostage. "What now, kids?" the women taunted as she held a kunai against the boy's throat. "You can't fight me without risking this boy's life, so you might as well give up. Being a ninja isn't meant for children like you." They couldn't help but sweat drop at her. "Weren't you our age when you became a genin?" Fu asked. The women stopped laughing as she was made fun of. Her face flushed in embarrassment. "That's not the point. You still have no cha." She never finished as a chop to the back of the neck knocked her out. "Glad to see you come out of your shell, Shibuki," Naruto said to Shibuki as he helped the boy up and pushed him towards the village where the rest of the villagers were safely hiding. "Yes, I came to realize that as this village's leader, I have to protect all of its people, no matter the cost," Shibuki said as he turned to the pair. "And great job, Fu. You have came a long way since the academy." He smiled at her as she blushed at the praise. The moment was cut short as 10 more rogue nin appeared before them. Then they felt it, the pressure that was coming from Suin. They saw the chakras surrounding him and felt the power radiating off of him. "Naruto, I know," Naruto responded. He felt that chakra. It felt like Tailed Beast was nearby. He turned to Shibuki and Fu. "Shibuki, Fu, can you guys handle these guys? Yugo needs my help." They nodded and Naruto took off. Shibuki and Fu turned their attention back to the missing nin. They nodded at each other and charged in. Shibuki summoned his water-cutting sword while Fu summoned her wings. Back with Yugo and Suin. Suin smirked as he felt his power increase drastically. He clenched and unclenched his hand as he was taking in all this newfound power. He then turned to Yugo. "With this power, I'm unstoppable," Suin cackled. "And you will be my first victim of this newfound power." Suin summoned another water-cutting sword and vanished before Yugo's eyes. "He's faster than before," Yugo thought before she saw Suin appear before her, ready to slash her. Yugo brought her sword up to block but wasn't fast enough as he cut her from her shoulder to the top of her navel. Yugo jumped back and fell to one knee. "Time to die," Suin yelled. He jumped towards Yugo and she closed her eyes, awaiting her death. There was nothing she could do. The wound was too deep and she could barely keep up with him now. She never felt the blow though. She opened her eyes and saw Naruto standing in front of her. He stood, blocking Suin's water blade with his black keyblade. "Why the long face, sensei? This chump giving you trouble?" Naruto asked in a tone that annoyed her. She knew that he used it all the time to make her annoyed. Suin, however, wasn't annoyed or laughing. He was angry. "How can you stop me? I drank the hero water. No one should be able to stand against me," he barked. Naruto dropped back to his smug look as he stared at Suin, slowly pushing him back as he overpowered him with his keyblade. "You know, I thought you were gonna be a force to reckon with considering how you were hyping up the hero water, but all I see is man who just got a chakra boost," Naruto taunted. "You know what?" Naruto jumped away from Suin and dispersed his keyblade. "I'm gonna let you drink as much as you want. You claim this will make you powerful and I have yet to see it. Maybe if you drink more then I won't be bored." Naruto waved his hand dismissively. Suin just glared and growled at him. How dare this upstart genin make fun of him? He was the best jonin in this village for Kami's sake. "Fine," Suin barked. "You want to fight? Then you'll get one." Suin took the bottle out of his pouch. He removed the cork and brought it to his lips. He smirked as he downed what was left of the water. An explosion of chakra surrounded him, blowing away the dirt and grass around them and caused some bugs and animals that weren't prepared to be blown back. "This power is unreal. No one can stand in my way," Suin yelled. Naruto couldn't help but be amazed at the amount of chakra he now had. From what felt to low-tailed beast levels of chakra, he now had mid to high-level tailed beast chakra. Before Naruto could say something, he found a fist buried in his gut. He looked up and spit as he saw Suin smirking down at him. Naruto was then launched back and collided with the massive tree behind him. The force was so much that he was embedded to the tree. "Do you see now, boy? You are no match for me," Suin yelled before he disappeared again and appeared before Naruto. He grabbed him by his hair and extracted him from the tree only to bury his knee into the young half-Saiyan. Naruto coughed again before he was thrown across the floor and tumbled near the edge of the lake. Suen walked over to the downed boy with a menacing glare on his face. He reached Naruto and lifted his foot above his head. Naruto went to get on his hands and knees only to be met with a foot to the back of his head, sending him face first to the ground. Suen proceeded to stomp on his head repeatedly, laughing the whole way. Seems like you take being hard-headed to a new level since it isn't mush right now. Suen cackled. As he was stomping, he was stopped as kunai and shuriken were thrown at him. He would have done something if his chakra didn't act as a shield and block them from hitting him. Suen turned and saw Shibuki and Fu glaring at him. Fu's hand was outstretched, showing she threw the weapons at him. He looked around and saw his group of ninja laying around. Some seemed unconscious while some were a bloody mess. Judging by the blood on both of them, they both killed his entourage. I didn't think you two had it in you to take another man's life. Suen taunted. Shibuki, the most cowardly shinobi to walk the elemental nations, and Fu, a Jinchuriki that would want to preserve life considering the way she was treated her entire life. The pair just panted in exhaustion. They realized that in order to live, you have to kill those that wish to harm you and those that you care for. Came a new voice. Suen looked to the side and saw Yugo lifting herself up off the ground, using her sword to push herself up. She then walked over to Fu and Shibuki while holding where he slashed her. He noticed she had bandaged as best she could, but it still looked sloppy considered she was doing it herself. You will all risk your lives for this boy? Suen laughed as he slammed his foot back down on Naruto's head. I can understand the leaf kunoichi, but you two also? Suen said, looking at Shibuki and Fu. When he saw they didn't falter, he growled. You are all fools. This is why it is so easy to take advantage of people. If you hold someone hostage, people will hesitate to do something. Suen angrily yelled. He then turned and kicked Naruto hard in his side, sending him flying to the middle of the lake. His body skipped a few times across the water before he sank below the surface. Suen smirked at his work before he turned back to the trio. Now, if you wish to die, come at me. Before anyone moved, someone else shouted. Hey asshole. Suen turned back to the water to see Naruto crawling out of the water. It looked as if he was climbing on top of the edge of a cliff but was on water. When he pulled his entire body out, he stood up to his full height. Besides a few scratches, his ripped clothing, and the fact it looked as if he was just punched in the mouth that caused him to bleed a minuscule amount, he was perfectly fine. Your fight is with me. Naruto yelled as he wiped the small amount of blood off his face. I'll admit, that did hurt a little bit. I definitely felt it, but you seriously need to work on your strength. It felt as if you were tickling me. He chuckled dryly. Suen had it with this boy. He was done being belittled by a genin. Suen took off towards Naruto, summoning his water-cutting blade, ready to strike him. Kid, yeah, I know. Just as Suen was mere inches away with the biggest grin on his face, he saw Naruto flex. The moment Naruto flexed, he was thrown back by a vast amount of power that exploded from the boy. Suen landed on the water yards away from Naruto. When he looked at him, he couldn't help but be astonished at what he saw. Gone was the black-haired, blue-eyed boy. What stood before him was a boy with spiky yellow hair that stood straight up with seafoam green eyes. A yellow aura surrounding him and what sounded like lighting in said aura. Suen only knew it was Naruto since he still had his whisker marks, albeit a bit darkened than they were before. What happened to Naruto? Fu questioned. She didn't know Naruto could change his hair like that. He has become what is known as a Super Saiyan. Looking at the confused looks, she began to explain. Something happened during the sealing of the 9 tails and something else was sealed in Naruto that night. He now is part of an ancient race that is almost extinct according to his knowledge. They both stared at Naruto in awe. Suen overheard her explanation but just thought she was spouting words. So what? So you dyed your hair and put in some colored contacts? He foolishly yelled. You didn't get any stronger. I still have way more chakra. Naruto smirked. Technically true considering they couldn't sense his ki. But he didn't need to know that. Then why don't you come and test me then? Naruto taunted, his voice sounding much deeper and held a bit of maliciousness to it. Suen yelled as he charged at the blonde. Naruto saw Suen rush at him like he saw him before. In slow motion, He only let Suen connect those times before because he wanted to test his strength. Much like how Goku and Black fought. No matter how many times he denied it, Kurama would never stop calling them masochists. Just as Suen was about to strike Naruto, he moved out of the way of his fist with ease, shocking the Jonin. He felt excruciating pain from his gut. Just how he had his fist buried in Naruto earlier, Naruto returned the favor. Though instead of spit coming out of his mouth, a glob of blood escaped his mouth. He then crumbled but was prevented from plunging into the water as Naruto caught him by his hair. "Well, looks like your little power boost is over," Naruto said. Suen had no idea what he was talking about until he felt extremely weak. He looked at his hands and saw his skin becoming wrinkled. "I will admit," Naruto started, "that first punch did hurt quite a bit, and if you remained that strong, I would have been very challenged fighting you. Though, you started to lose your power quickly and now you seem to be losing your life force. I just didn't think you would age too." What he said was true. Suen's skin started to wrinkle and his hair became white as his teeth started to fall out. When it was over, Suen looked nothing more than an 80-year-old man. "Now, the sane person would let you go since you can barely walk." Suen looked hopeful. That was crushed when Naruto had the most sadistic grin he could muster. "But I'm not sane in the slightest." Suen had no chance to do anything as he was flung into the air. "Kami." Suen looked back towards the grounds. "Ha-mi." He saw Naruto cup his hands together and some sort of energy was forming between his hands. Be it his now old age or something else, but he could not sense chakra from the energy Naruto was forming. But he did know it wasn't gonna feel nice. "Ha!" Naruto thrust his hands towards the airborne Suen, launching his Kamehameha at him. The moment it touched Suen, an explosion that the residents of Waterfall never felt before erupted. There was no trace of Suen and there never would be. Naruto descended from his Super Saiyan form and regained his black locks and blue eyes. He made his way over to the trio, two of which stared at him wide-eyed. "What?" Naruto asked. Next day, after explaining that the powers he showed yesterday was from his race, Naruto, Yugo, Shibuki, and Fu all stood outside of the village. They stayed just so Yugo could get patched up and recover from her injuries. "Thank you again, for everything," Shibuki said as he shook Yugo's hand. "No problem. Our mission was to protect you until we left the village," Yugo responded. They both turned to the two teens who were saying their goodbyes. "So, you know how you asked me what my dreams for the future were?" Fu said as she looked at the ground. Naruto quirked an eyebrow at her. He figured she had something but didn't want to share as there was plenty of time to talk about it yesterday. "Yeah, so what is your dream, Fu?" Naruto asked. "What was that?" What?" Naruto leaned closer hoping to hear what she was trying to say. His eyes went as wide as saucers when Fu lunged forward and kissed him on the lips. The two adults were shocked at this as much as Naruto was. He soon got over his shock and kissed back, albeit only for a few seconds as she pulled back. "My dream is that I want to be with you. I want to spend my life with you regardless of your girlfriend." If what Yugo said was true, then she wouldn't mind. "I want to have a family with you." Naruto stayed silent the entire time, not knowing what to say. "But I know we can never be together since we are from different villages. So I kissed you. I needed some type of closure knowing that we would maybe never see each other again. I'm sorry if I invaded your space and if you don't feel the same and hate me. But I needed to do that for myself," Fu said as tears started to fall as she looked down. She felt a hand on her chin pick her head up. She felt Naruto's hands wipe away her tears. "Fu, I'm not mad. I'm flattered that you feel that way about me. And to be honest, I have feelings for you too. And maybe if we weren't from different villages, we could find out where this would take us." They stared at one another as Naruto still held her face. Their moment was ruined when they heard Shibuki. They turned to the village leader and saw him looking a bit guilty. "I forgot to tell you, Fu. I actually decided that if you wanted to, you could leave with them to the leaf if that is what you desired." Shibuki awkwardly chuckled. Yugo was struggling to not burst into laughter at the atomic blush and stuttering the dark-skinned Jinchuriki was going through. Naruto for his part was chuckling a bit while shaking his head. "I just saw how much Naruto made you happy and didn't want you to lose your first real friend," Shibuki explained. Fu seemed to calm down a bit. She then turned to Naruto and Yugo. "Would I be accepted in your village? Would I be ostracized like here?" Naruto and Yugo looked at each other and just shrugged. Hard to say. Naruto spoke. They don't talk to me and leave me alone mostly because I fight back. Though since the knowledge of my parents came to light, a few of them have been trying to treat me like royalty, but I don't care. Also, Naruto has people who care for him, including me. And once they know you are friends with Naruto, no doubt they care for you too. Yugo said as she walked to Fu. She leaned down to whisper in her ear. And once Naruto's girlfriend, Anko, finds out about your little kiss here, she will be dying to meet you. Fu didn't know whether to be scared or, yeah, scared was right. From what Naruto had told her, Anko was a bit sadistic and wanted playthings. Why, you won't tell her, will you? Yugo smirked but just shrugged at her as she walked away. So Fu, what are you gonna do? Shibuki asked as he put an arm on her shoulder. Just know, as your older brother, I want you to be happy and will support whatever you pick. Fu looked at Shibuki. She had always saw him as an older brother, and now that he said, she couldn't help but cry in happiness. They hugged while the Leaf Nin watched their little moment of happiness. After a few moments of hugging, they separated. I want to go with them. I love you like a brother, Shibuki, but my heart want to go where it belongs. Fu said as she glanced back at Naruto. Shibuki just nodded his head at her. Then I will support your decision. I just want you to be happy, so go where you feel is right. She nodded and went back through the underground passage to grab her important things from her home. Minutes later, she emerged from the water surrounding the waterfall. She gave Shibuki a quick hug and stood by Naruto and Yugo. Thank you once again, he shouted as he watched the trio walk away into the forest before he retreated back to the village. After they were a good distance away, Naruto shouted, "All right, we are not going all the way there on foot," he yelled. Yugo shook her head as she walked up to Naruto and she put a hand on his shoulder. How else are we gonna get there? Fly? Fu questioned. Sure, she could fly, but that was a special case. Huh? Oh no. Maybe another time when I feel like flying, he said dismissively, which Fu looked at him weird. He sounded as if he could fly. Now, if you could mirror my mother here, ow, he exclaimed as Yugo swatted the back of his head. Anyways, just put your hand on my shoulder and you'll see. Fu stared at him questionably, but at the gesture of him and Yugo she complied. So, now what? She asked as she touched his shoulder. Now, Naruto said as he grinned. You hope you didn't have a big breakfast. He brought his index and middle finger to his forehead. Wah-ah. And just like that, they disappeared from the forest in the blink of an eye. Hokage's office. Hiruzen sighed as he read through the document that his secretary had found. Though he couldn't help but giggle perversely while cursing in his head too. Lucky brat, Hiruzen murmured as he put the paper down to rub his temples. He picked up his pipe and took a long drag. He needed to relax, if only for a short while. Mission accomplished, Gramps. Hiruzen jumped at someone yelling in his office that he dropped his pipe and it spilled the tobacco that it held. Ow, what the heck, sensei? Naruto cursed as he rubbed the spot where Yugo swatted him. Don't yell at the Hokage, let alone call him Gramps. She scolded. Yeah, he muttered. Anyways, Gramps. He stepped forward, avoiding another blow from Yugo. We finished that mission and even brought a new resident to Konoha with us. Hiruzen sat up straight and stared at them. He pinched the bridge of his nose as he realized Naruto used what he called instant transmission to appear in his office again. He then looked over to said new resident but couldn't help but chuckle at the swirls in her eyes as she tried to orient herself. She came to once Yugo held her still. So it would seem. He spoke for the first time. Now, who might you be? He asked Fu. He knew who she was. It was his job to know who were the current Jinchuriki if any of the other villages planned an attack. Also, he didn't want to be rude, so he let her introduce herself. My name is Fu, Lord Hokage. I'm a genin from the village hidden by a waterfall. I am also like Naruto, in which I hold 7. Fu bowed as she finished introducing herself. She was nervous. She knew villages didn't take kindly to other Jinchuriki visiting their villages, and she was hoping Hiruzen was as kind as Naruto described him. Hiruzen just smiled warmly at her. Nice to meet you, young Fu. Now, why is it that you have decided to join my village? Well, you see. Fu blushed up a storm as she looked at Naruto quickly. Hiruzen, judging by the slight shaking of Yugo indicating she was hiding her giggling and Naruto rubbing the bridge of his nose as if knowing trouble was to come, he realized why she came to the village. He smiled at her. Fear not. I have nothing against you and your decision, he said while inwardly he was saying, that damn brat. First Anko, then her, and that paper. Curse him. Now, would you like to give me a mission brief about what happened? He addressed Yugo, who straightened herself and began to tell what happened. From the beginning to the very end, even the Kiss Fu and Naruto shared much to the mint-haired girl's embarrassment. Hiruzen nodded and thanked Yugo for her explanation. I'd say this went from a C rank to a high A rank, maybe S rank mission. I will sort the details out later, but taking on 20 or so missing nin all B rank or higher in the bingo books with multiple being A rank jonin, looks like it will be an S rank. He said, much to the satisfaction of Naruto at the chance of getting paid an S rank mission. Now, I want to know about you, Fu. Fu looked at her new leader. What is it you wish to do? You were a genin in Waterfall and could grant you that rank here, but I want to know what your decision is. Fu looked at Naruto and Yugo. They just shrugged and gave her the go-ahead to do what she wants. I want to be a civilian. Fu said, much to Hiruzen's surprise. I don't want to fight for my life day in and day out. I know me being a Jinchuriki is going to cause problems with that, but I will train in my own time so I won't be a burden on anyone. I just want to live a normal life as much as I can. Fu said. She didn't want to fight and kill people if her life didn't depend on it. Hiruzen thought it over for a moment. He looked at her and knew that she lived a life much like Naruto, with people hating her very existence and being alone for nearly her whole life. Granted, I will allow you to be free of ninja duties and live out the rest of your days as a civilian. Hiruzen said as Fu smiled. Though you do need a place of your own, but for now, where will you be staying? With us. Naruto spoke. We have an extra bedroom since Anko and I share the same room, so she can have the spare. Hiruzen nodded at that. Great, Naruto said. Now, let's go get you settled in, Fu. Naruto made his way towards the door, but Hiruzen's voice stopped him. Actually, there is a paper here that requires your attention, Hiruzen said as he grabbed the paper. It actually concerns all of you with the current way things have transpired now. That made them raise their eyebrows. All of them? Yugo stepped forward and reached for the paper. Hiruzen handed it to her. Yugo read it, and that was the last straw. She broke down and collapsed to the floor in laughter. If someone from Anbu was to see their former, stoic and serious, captain rolling on the ground laughing, they would have thought they were in a genjutsu. What's so funny? Naruto shouted over his sensei's laughter. Well, you see, Naruto. Minato, your father and the fourth Hokage, had a strained relationship with Rock Village and the Tsuchikage. Now Minato held no hate for them, and Oanoki the same for us. They understood that death happens in war, but their people held grudges. Hiruzen explained. They wanted to get past this whole ordeal, so they came up with a solution that would bring the two villages together and end the hate their villages had against each other. Naruto could feel a sense of dread coming. He heard that in way too many shows and books. That would bring the two places together and end their grudges and hate. Your father and the Tsuchikage signed an arranged marriage contract between Minato's eldest child and the Tsuchikage's eldest grandchild. Silence filled the room as Naruto and Fu took in the information.